providing air for respiration, serving the sense of smell, filtering and warming the conditions of the air are some of the most important of a nose. But how about living a life without a nose?
mba numva binduhije nk'iyo ngiye mu bantu ngiye gusenga se cyangwa ngiye ku isoko abantu bose bandeba bamwe bakavuza induru bati ni igisimba.
This woman has been living without a nose after losing it in a tragic gun incident which narrowly survived. But how is she coping with life after losing the nose? We visit her and she tells us more of her extraordinary life. This 43-year-old was born normal and lived a normal life with a nose as any other person. She was born in a poor background where they often struggled with getting food and other basic needs. After turning 19, she moved from her city to another urban center looking for green pasture. But as they always say, we don't often get what we want. Due to living a difficult life, I hoped moving to the city would be a breakthrough. But sadly, due to insecurities, I was short on the nose. I didn't lose the nose immediately, then scratched it and later lost it. After losing the nose, she was taken to the hospital where doctors operated and closed the empty gap where the nostrils were closed. Since that day, she breathes from the mouth. It was difficult at first, as some days she even struggled to breathe before adapting to using her mouth. Emerita later realized how she looked totally different to how she was before this tragedy, and that caused a low self-esteem, and she thought that no one would ever love her due to having no nose. I thought no one would ever love me, but a man came to me who had a wife and kids and still promised he loved me, and having lost hope thinking no one cares, I trusted him and we lived together, but after having a child together, we parted ways. What she went through was really terrible. Love, parting ways, getting back together, and repeat. The man returned and apologized, then took her back home. But lastly, living together wasn't working, and she returned to her home village where she lives up to this present day. My husband seemed to care. He could defend me most of the times and tell people how beautiful I looked despite losing the nose. But they kept asking him how blind he was to fall in love with such an ugly-looking woman, and he realized that maybe they were right.
The
43-year-old admits that losing her nose has affected her in almost everything because she's no longer the same in terms of physicality. Her body is too weak to handle the village life because life here means you have to use your physical energy to survive. But since losing her nose, she gets weaker and weaker daily. That providing for herself and the firstborn is much more complicated. I can't easily do some activities. Cultivating is way more difficult for me, but I'm focused to do it because there's no one else here. It's me, my son, and my mother. Those two don't contribute to anything because my boy is too young to do such, and the mother is too old to do anything. And that means that everything that concerns providing has to be done by only me.
Kuriya mwamubonye natwe niko twamubonye yagiye ari muzima agaruka ameze kuriya nta mazuru afite turamuyoberwa pe ariko amaze kutubwira amazina twasanze ari umuvandimwe turamwakira tubana.
She never thought about how losing a nose was a big deal until her first day returning to her home village, and people failed to recognize her because she looked like someone else, not her, and she was left shocked.
bamwe bakavuga ngo ntabwo ari njye abandi ngo
Those who knew me and those whom we grew up together took too much time to see that I was the same person. Most of the times, I had to reintroduce myself again, tell them my names, and say what happened that took away my nose. Having never considered that one day she'll be living a life without a nose explains why, even up to this day, having a self-acceptance and moving on is still a very long journey, as she keeps seeing herself different from others.
byarangoye cyane kuko nirirwaga ndira.
It was hard for me to move on because whenever I try and convince myself that I'm like anyone else, then move on, I lose my confidence. Like whenever I go to church or to the market, many people stop and stare at me for a long period of time. And that tells me that maybe I'm a different creature, plus a few other people who keep discouraging me with some negative comments that I'm ugly and stuff like that. Despite being discouraged or bullied, she says this no longer hurts her. If you omit her just because of her appearance, she moves on. She says people are made different. Some are kind, loving and caring, and others are completely the opposite. So it's life, and she can't waste her time on such people.
byarangoye cyane kuko nirirwaga ndira nkarara ndira nakwireba muri miriyari nkabona isura nari mfite mbere siyo ngifite nareba n'ubuzima mbayemo mu rugo nkabona nabwo burarenze mbese numvaga isi yarandemereye cyane.
After the incident in which she was shot and lost the nose, she was not quickly taken to the hospital and delayed due to lack of enough money for treatment. And though she was later given some treatment, having delayed had a big impact, like having a severe headache, where her head is always aching. And this started right the day she lost her nose, and it's a pretty worrisome problem.
guhumeka birambangamira cyane cyane ngira kuka gake ahantu hazamuka sinagenda nihuta mbese no kuvuga urumva ko bimwe bitagenda neza buri munsi ngahora ndwaye umutwe bambwiye ko bituruka kuri aya mazuru bitewe n'uko natinze kujya kwivuza bitewe n'ubushobozi bukeya ngo niyo mpamvu mu mutwe hangiritse cyane.
bakubwiye ko ntacyo babikoraho?
babwiye ko nta keretse mfite ubushobozi naho kuri mituweli ngo ntabwo byashoboka kubera bisaba abaganga bakomeye.
Her condition is much more difficult than we can imagine because anytime she suffers from flu, it gets more complicated as she struggles with sneezing, fails to breathe. In a few words, losing the nose is the worst thing to ever happen to her.
nk'irwaye gripe bigenda gute?
amatwi arafunga amaso agatukura nkahera umwuka singira ikintu mbasha gukora mbese nkabera nk'umuntu urwaye malariya nkaryama rwose ubuzima bugahagarara mu mibereho.
ubasha gupfuna?
oya ntabwo bikunda.
Life here in this village is difficult, and to Emerita who never went to school, it's much more complicated. That providing for her basic needs is almost impossible, yet she needs to raise her boy and pay his school fees. She also needs to undergo another surgery so that her respiratory issues would be fixed. To help this single mother, you can click on the givinglife.com with links found in description and pinned in top comments. Keep fighting. The phrase implies that even when things get tough, it's important to stay strong and keep pushing forward towards your goals. It's a reminder to not let setbacks discourage you and to keep trying until you succeed. Thank you for watching. I'm Elijah and this is Afrimax English. Remember to subscribe.